Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Insert Buzzword podcast. We are delighted to be joined by Dan Grandfield this evening. Dan,
good evening, gents.
I believe you are already familiar with Tristan. Good. First question: how did you meet Tristan?
I'm trying to remember. Is it rugby? Rugby related? Is that when I first met you?
Rugby club, definitely.
Yeah. We're both rugby people. I moved to Crieff, I don't know, a few years ago now, 7 or 8 years ago, and indicated a desire to help at Crieff Rugby Club. I haven't been an
fetal mistake.
Yeah, I was getting on a bit, and I'd retired from playing. I did play till I was 44 or whatever, 45, but a bit too long in the tooth to actually play. So I offered my help. I'm not actually sure how much help I've been. I think I promised a lot. I've delivered a small amount. So there you go.
You also involved in the committee and the politics that's involved in that?
Not really. I'm kind of I'm on the edge, on the periphery.
He's in the WhatsApp group. He sees it.
I'm a peripheral member.
I'm in the WhatsApp group. I'm part of the committee for the choir that I'm part of. I think I'm in 6 different groups. It's just relentless. Constant WhatsApps. I can feel
6 groups?
No, like others. I had to mute quite a lot of them.
How many different octaves?
Yeah,
wow.
Too many. So, Dan, by way of a quick introduction, what do you do and where do you come from, please?
I run my own hospitality consultancy called Blue Crags Consulting, and I come from Staffordshire in the Midlands of England. Not many people know where it is, but if you've ever been to Alton Towers, it's in Staffordshire.
Sure.
Home of pottery and beer, and that's about it. So I grew up in the rural part of England. Sheep farms, all that kind of stuff, lived in the sticks. So, yeah. Now I'm in Crieff, interestingly.
Another far and beyond place. It's north of the border this time. And how did you get into hospitality then?
When I was at school, I went to a very traditional boarding school, rolled doll, the boys about my school. Everyone was army-barmy, so the first thing was to become an army officer. So at university, I wasn't really doing very much, as I mentioned. I was kind of working towards that. But I failed regular commissions board, which is for the entrance to Sandhurst. And I remember the letter now. It said Grandfield's petulance is quite unbelievable, and he's probably not suitable, as he does not like being told what to do in any way, shape or form. So the dream didn't really work out. And I think that's probably, it's probably a good thing at the end of the day. So I was in Glasgow still, having finished university. Didn't want to go back and work in the pottery industry or the brewing industry. And I'd enjoyed my 4 years living in Glasgow. If you can imagine being at an old boys boarding school and then moving to a city like Glasgow, it was like moving to a new playground. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to move back to Staffordshire. I did 4 weeks of advertising sales for a police magazine, which I now believe might very well have been a scam, actually. And the magazine didn't actually exist. But it kind of, you basically selling the fact it was a magazine for the police to get people to buy advertising in it. But every time I asked for a copy of said magazine, you got this kind of thing that was put together with maybe some bulldog clips, things like that. So I decided that wasn't for me. It was in the Pentagon Centre in Glasgow. I don't know if you've come across that.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it was in there. It had a proper an office. But it's the way they used to crack open the tins at 4 p.m. before work had even finished and stuff like that. I thought, it's not really for me. So I took a job as a waiter in a Stackis hotel in Glasgow city centre. Stackis was the kind of original Scottish hotel group. A lot of people remember it if they're around. They actually had quite a few hotels at one point. It became part of Hilton in the end, but I took a job as a waiter there. Something I was familiar with because my dad had a bar and restaurant in Birmingham that I worked in from a young age. So when I was home from school, I didn't really get to doss around. I'd go and work in the beer cellar in the bar. And then there's a couple of factories in Birmingham that I worked in on the way. So when I came back from school, we had longer holidays, private schools. So 10 weeks in the summer, I'd have plans to go off and see my pals all over the UK. And no, I'd be packed off to work in a factory in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
So I took this job as a waiter at the Stackers Hotel back in Glasgow, so I didn't have to go back to Staffordshire. And here I am, some 30 years later, running my own hospitality consultancy. And It's been a bit of a journey in between. So, to be honest, I think hospitality was something that I'd always energetically been drawn to. When I was at school, we had these work experience things, and one of them was to go and do work experience at Crieff Hydro, bizarrely. But I was turned down for it. So I vowed never to cross over the threshold of Crieff Hydro. Now I live in the town where Crieff Hydro is, bizarrely. And I was also at university with one of the Leckie family, which owned the Hydro as well. So that's kind of strange thing. So I was always drawn to it. In those days, it was a fairly tough route. A waiter, supervisor, head barman, restaurant manager, restaurant supervisor, restaurant manager. I was at that hotel for 2 years. It was on Hill Street in Glasgow. And then the general manager, she moved down to open a new hotel in Islington in London. She phoned me up and said, would you like to come and be bar and brasserie manager of this new Hilton hotel in Islington on Upper Street? And I said, of course. I probably wasn't ready for it. But in those days, hotels would do live-in, so you didn't need to worry about accommodation, which obviously is tricky in London. So I lived in this hotel. I still remember the room number, room 425. Lived in that for a year before the company that owned the hotel bought a house in a place called Bounds Green in London. Then I moved out of the hotel and moved into this house. So you were paid a lower salary, but you had a roof over your head, bills were paid, and obviously you could eat food at work and things like that. But there was a lot of burning the candles at both ends. It was a bit wild, the hospitality industry in those days. You had industry nights where you wore your uniform with your name badge on. So you'd finish work at 2 a.m, you'd go along to this nightclub and you'd be able to get in and stuff like that. So it's good fun. I got a bit bored with doing food and beverage. I was in that hotel for 5 years, bar and brasserie manager, food services manager, eventually food and beverage manager. Good fun looking at, decent brasserie in those days. Hotel food was a lot better, perhaps, than some hotels are now. It was all sourced from vans from Covent Garden Market, things like that. So it was a good experience, but I got fed up with it. So I moved into health and safety, as you do.
Oh, wow. Much more exciting.
Yeah, much more exciting, but at a different pace, should we say. So I looked after health and safety for 2 Hilton hotels in Mayfair, which is quite good fun. It's quite different. Security was part of that. So, you did deal with the odd celebrity and things like that. It was an interesting part of London to work in. It was a very boring job, mainly because the health and safety part of hotels is it's quite hard to get people to sign on to it. So you were basically the salesman for health and safety. So you were either popular with some departments and deeply unpopular with others. So I kind of got fed up with that. But while I was working in the Hilton Islington, one of the managers of the Business Design Centre, which is an exhibition centre, much like Olympia, next door, said, hey, you got yourself into health and safety? And I said, well, yes, I did. And he goes, do you want to come and work for us? So I went to work in exhibitions and events for a year. But then I got made redundant. And redundancies happened to me twice. And, if you think about key moments in your life, redundancy creates them. For me, it's never been a bad thing. It's a very positive thing. And, with those, obviously I panicked a bit. I just moved in with my girlfriend at the time after only being together for 8 months. She's now my wife, by the way, so it did work out. So in that time, I realised that I was a hotelier, a hospitality guy. So I thought about getting back into it, and Premier Inn came calling. I got an ops manager role at the Premier Inn in Putney Bridge. It was called Travelling in those days, before it went through 2 brand kind of changes. Premier Inn in those days was a great company. Travelling was a great company. It was quite autonomous. You actually got to the GMs got to run their businesses. Not many of the services were centralised. And then spent 7 years with Premier Inn, I became a GM, general manager, very quickly. It's a bit of a launchpad. So I did a year and a half at Putney Bridge, and then I got my first kind of GM role at Barking in London, and then Premier Inn in Hammersmith in London. And then my wife was working for Hilton at the time. She was a learning and development manager for the Hilton hotels in West London. Decided she was Glaswegian. Surprise, she wanted to come back to Scotland. So in 2008, I came back. Premier Inn at Glasgow Airport was vacant, so I joined there. And then for the second time in my career, 2011, I was made redundant. And I moved 500 metres across the airport campus to be ops manager at the Holiday Inn at Glasgow Airport. So back into a full service hotel, which again was a great move, and then did that for a couple of years. That's a volume place, 300 bedrooms, very busy. And then Z Hotels, I was reading Caterer, the magazine, very good magazine, saw that Z Hotels were moving to Scotland. It was a small, compact, affordable luxuries, their brand. I was aware of them in London. Read an article that Bev King, the owner, was thinking about a hotel in Glasgow. So I emailed them and said that I would like to open it for them. I was successfully, so speculative. There wasn't even a job out. And I got the job, spent a year and a half opening. It was a building site when I joined. It was a great experience doing a new opening. Got that hotel off the ground, introduced it to market in Glasgow. And then they decided to shelve their plans for expansion in Scotland, which would have meant I could have taken an area manager role, because the hotel on its own was quite a small role, one that was to be bored of. They got cold feet in 2014 with Scottish independence debate and the vote. They decided to pull investment at that point. And they never actually went back to it, strangely. But, they had plans for Edinburgh, Aberdeen, etc. But they didn't do that in the end. So I decided to move 800 metres away to the Mercure on Ingram Street, because I've not done hotels, technical pricing, seasonality, revenue management, we call it. You have revenue management systems, processes. I hadn't had a full service hotel revenue management experience. So that's why I moved to that hotel. Did that for 4 years. Difficult hotel to manage, right in the middle of the merchant city. All sorts of challenges and things like that. And then the decision came. I was sat there. My wife had made the decision to go self-employed some 10, 12 years previously. And I decided to stay employed at that point. I hadn't really thought about becoming self-employed then. And it was in those final couple of years, I was thinking about, should I set up on my own? So January 2020, I set up Blue Crags Consulting, limited company, all that stuff. And then little did I know there was a global pandemic in March 2020.
Right.
So it's quite a tricky time to set a business up. Luckily, and again, probably an energetic thing, when I set up the business, I was thinking about doing things like recruitment, commercial reviews. I didn't set it up. This is interesting. I didn't set it up with a sole focus. I just thought I would do hospitality. And then you look back now and go, what does that mean? I'm just going to do some hospitality consulting. But I knew I'd be able, something in me, I said to myself, I think I can be of service to somebody for some, hospitality businesses. So, I built up a little bit of capital, to be fair. I had some savings that I'd done on purpose to see, to get me through the few months after we started it. And then I had I'd started charitable activities. I was a trustee of CRIF Community Trust, a community development trust. So I do some charity stuff voluntarily. And one of the other board members was John Laurie, who was managing director of Glentoran Distillery. And he phoned me, knowing I was a hospitality guy, and asked me if I knew of a good agency to do recruitment. And I said, well, I'll do it for you. So that kept me, I think I delivered about 6 or 7 positions for the restaurant at Glen Turret, which now about is just won its second star, television star.
Saw on Instagram. Yep.
Yeah, so well done to them. And it's a cracking spot. It's a lovely distillery. It's still the old buildings and stuff like that. Fantastic business. Good level of investment from Lalique, the new owners. Not new now, but so that kept me going in the period where everybody was at home. And then I got a call from an ex-boss of mine and said, could you help me out at McKeel Livingston? A friend of mine and a colleague who unfortunately was terminally ill, had to take some time off work, obviously. So I said I would look after the hotel for him on an interim basis. Really tough because the team, been there for 12 years. He was a really admired guy. And also that hotel was going through a transition between 2 hospitality management companies, from what we used to call Jupiter Hotels to Aimbridge or Interstate, which is a much larger hospitality. So that means all your systems have to change over. Payroll, finance, revenue management, PMS, all those things. So I quite enjoyed, during COVID, it was quite tricky. I had people on the social housing ladder in the hotel. I had delivery drivers and had army vaccinators. The hotel was actually full and operating, even though to the world, everybody thought everything was closed, but actually there was a backbone of things going on in the background. Yep. And people have to stay somewhere when they move around the country. So, it's bizarre, really. If people did turn up, I had to get a piece of paper from them proving they're a key worker or that they're allowed to stay in the hotel. Normally it's all anybody come and stay.
Or go for an eye test.
Yeah, come and stay. Give us your money. So it was an interesting time, but then interims became a thing, and I've really quite enjoyed that. I've done quite a few of these interim appointments now on a self-employed basis. I've done some commercial reviews for a couple of places. So when you look at their profitability, sales, recruitment, how they're performing, I found that my hotel career has really given me a real generalist, as the job title, general manager, has given me a real generalist set of skills. So you touch on marketing, you touch on finance, you touch on all those things, and you have sometimes you have an autonomous singular business unit that you're kind of accountable for. So you have to flex your kind of knowledge and your muscles in those areas. So for that reason, there's a beautiful thing about hotel management for that reason. It's a unit with all the functions in it. Some might be centralized, but generally you've got this building and you've got to make some money out of it. And that's the way it works. On an interim basis, I've learned even more. That's one thing I've learned as well. I'm 50 years old. I'm still learning. Every time I go work for a different brand, every time I go work in a different environment, I'm learning something. It's been fantastic. Now I'm at the crossroads. What's next? I've been following it. I've been doing it kind of energetically. So I'm in a period now of reflection, and I'm thinking about, I don't know if there's an organization called Atolo, which was a startup hospitality, don't know how to describe it, educational agency. So I did some mentoring for them, and I did delivered some courses, designed and delivered some courses on LinkedIn for people looking for jobs and, employability skills, things like that. I've done some of that. That's as a volunteer as well. But I'm thinking that now I might have a look at some learning and development stuff. I don't think the industry's changing fast enough. And I think leadership into the emerging future is something that we really need to have a look at. I've managed some hotels, the new generations of young people coming through. It requires a different set of skills, in my view, to get the best out of the generations coming through, because not everyone's going to do what you say just because you've got a job and you're the boss. It doesn't work like that anymore. It's just, you need to actually deliver a lot more of an engaging workplace for people to really get engaged by it, and then, help the business deliver what it wants to deliver. And I think a lot of leadership skills, a lot of leadership training is still in the past. Yeah, it's real soft skills now are really important. Listening, coaching, all those things, not classroom. Online training is a bit of a scourge for me. It's very, very good for process and procedure. You can't teach someone how to look after a customer on a computer program yet. One day, I presume, we'll have robots pretending to be, with AI and all that stuff. But for now, so I think something in the learning development field. Sorry?
Said robots will be the customers.
Yeah, well, you just don't know, will you? Like Terminator, Rise of the Machines. So working on something at the moment, actually, leadership in the emerging future. I keep saying 21st century, but my wife keeps reminding me we're already 24 years in. So it's a bit off. Yeah. So, the emerging future. So kind of 3 horizons thinking and all sorts of things. So, we all need to be, a lot more entrepreneurial in a way. But we also need to be a lot more human focused and not task focused. But sometimes I feel it's going the other way and becoming more task focused.
I think
as people try. I
was going to say, with the almost like lack of leadership skills, the natural kind of desire to control, when you're not getting the traction or engagement you want, the kind of worst thing you can do, but the kind of natural tendency, in my experience, is people go down the task focus because they're trying to either justify their job or to show that they're, doing their worth. And it doesn't help anyone because they get even less, their team is even less engaged. And they're, psychologically, in my experience, you kind of end up in this mindset where you're not focused on value creation, but you're focused on task creation, almost like being really busy, but not for much value.
Absolutely.
Enforcing your kind of formal authority on people, which doesn't have any benefit at all. It makes you feel like crap because you won't get the validation you want, and it makes the other team feel crap because you're just, demanding something rather than working with them.
Yeah, I would say that thing as well. If you ever, one thing, as I can tell you that I've always, I don't want to hear it's not my job. And I hear that a lot more now. So it's almost like contractually, contracts and things need to be even more detailed about what people's responsibilities are. Whereas when I come into it, you hit the ground, you hit the ground running. You do everything to try and learn, try and develop, try and move forward. It's quite an interesting change. It's almost reactionary. It's almost going backwards a little bit. Yeah. Obviously not everywhere. No. Just an experience in 1 or 2 places.
Was there a particular experience, Dan, that kind of pushed you to starting your own business? Obviously, you said earlier you kind of felt that you could do it and you could add value, you could be of service, but was there a particular moment where you thought, no, I need to do this?
I think it was a build-up over a couple of years. Myself and my wife, we did quite a lot of inner work, what's important in life, not almost an existentialist crisis, not all the time, but kind of examining stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And doing that kind of thing, you start to I realized that I was institutionalized, and I've kind of blundered from institution to institution. So heavily institutionalized school environment, university, not kind of so much, but hotels are quite institutionalized. Things are still done the same way. You still have a budget, have a year's block, and the KPIs, you're all the same wherever you go. So you become institutionalized. And I realized that I wasn't operations director material. Yeah. I didn't really want to go at the next level, not have a hotel and look after 12 people running other hotels. I'm an operator, and actually working from home and things like that has kind of reminded me of that I really am an operator. But hospitality, if you imagine 30 years not knowing whether you're going to spend Christmas with your family, whether you're days off, long hours. As GM, the buck stops with you. And even on some of my interim appointments in the last couple of years, I've still put in days where I've needed to do 16 to 18 hours, VIPs, staff calling in sick, the kind of challenges that hotels often have. And it was actually to take back a little bit of control into how I structure my life, rather than being, kind of cap in hand to an institutionalized structure.
Yeah.
And it's been quite refreshing. There's some aspects of the institutions that I like, but at the moment I'm touching in and out of it, and I've got a lot more freedom and flexibility to follow other things and develop myself in other ways.
What is the work-life balance been like in the dynamic with your wife then? Because you both worked in hotels. So I guess my expectation was when you're both in the industry, it's quite complementary in some ways. And now when she started her own business or doing self-employed, did that dynamic change? Was there things you had to adapt or change to?
Interesting. Yeah, interestingly, if you imagine, when we first got together, I was a shift worker effectively. So, a typical shift, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. I didn't work nights, although I'd sometimes work nights if the night team didn't turn up. Which again, I've done a couple of 24 hours, 3 p.m. to 3 p.m. That's tough, lad. It's tough. But Susan was very much a learning and development still is an office based, as in good old Henry Ford, whatever his name was, introduced the Monday to Friday 40-hour week, or whatever it was. So learning and development is very much operates in that kind of world. I was kind of senior, starting to get more senior as we got to go ops manager. I didn't have to do quite so many nights, but still had to do quite a few. Still had to work quite a few weekends. It worked fine because Susan's job, when she became self-employed, she was away a lot. So she'd be away delivering training experiences all over the UK and laterally in the Middle East, USA, Europe. So when we first got together, I was a shift worker. Susan was quite often away. So we got together with that at the beginning, and it kind of remained like that for the next 15 years. Susan was away an awful lot in the Middle East.
Did you enjoy that?
Well, it actually strangely gave me the freedom of mind to just worry about work and not to practice your way. It's a strange one, isn't it? And not to worry about my relationship. We don't have any children, which I know is a major factor for a lot of people in decision making. Okay. And a lot of decisions we've been able to make have been because we haven't got kids and the responsibility of children. So, that has, if you're thinking the way I'm talking, it's made it sound easy. There is a factor that meant we had more flexibility than most people do. Although, some people would say that's just a mindset. I'm sure it's not just a mindset when you've got two other human beings that
I would say.
So I'm not sure about that. I don't believe that anyway. So yeah, our relationship, Susan understood that I was a shift worker. She was a Staffordshire graduate management trainee, so she was a Strathclyde as well, by the way. Luckily she didn't know me at university, otherwise I don't think we'd be together. But she was a Staffordshire graduate management trainee, so her first proper working role was as in a hotel company, and she did some shifts, she did some catering stuff, she did all those things that they make graduate trainees go through. So she had experienced it, even though she went into learning and development. So yeah, there was quite a lot of understanding there.
With you both now being self-employed, any tension, any different times?
We see a lot of each other, to be fair. It's interesting. It's kind of odd. I think it's stranger for Susan than it is for me. She was used to an empty, quiet house. Mm-hmm. Now she's got me lumbering about downstairs, sometimes getting in the way. To start with, I think I was getting in the way of her routines. Yeah. But routines, you can change routines. It takes a bit of work. Again, mindset, work to change routines. Programs, Susan would call them. Programs are quite often what institutions give you, the way you think about things and the way you operate. So I wouldn't say there was tension. I think she would like it if I was away a bit more at the moment, because I've been at home for quite a long period of time.
Is she out trying to get you interim positions in hotels?
She has sent me one or two adverts recently. So maybe that's there. But, there's there's a couple of things across my desk that I've decided not to do. And, we're working together, because Susan's a learning and development professional, has stayed in that area, especially coaching. And, again, we're developing leadership in the emerging future together. Because Susan has a master's in mindfulness, coaching background, and a training and delivery background. So we're putting something together, and we're using hospitality as a test case, mainly because I've been in it. I don't like saying I'm an expert. I've just been working in it for 30 years, so I know a lot about it. So we're trying to put that together. So we're working together on that, collaborating. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I've got two.
So we'll see how it goes.
I've got two questions.
Sure.
And the first one is, if you are taking on an interim role and it requires you to be away for an extended period of time, do you take your Xbox?
I don't. I can't. Did I tell you I'm a bit of an Xbox guy,
yeah.
Jeremy, just to let you know.
Okay.
I'm a big Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 guy. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
I played all of them since if you imagine, if you're my age, when I was a kid, PCs were ridiculous. Spectrum ZX81, BBC Micro. These things, you could just about write a few things in colour on your screen. Yeah. That's about all they did. And you loaded games in a tape that made this ear screeching noise as it loaded on. Yes. And half the time it didn't work, and it took 25 minutes to load, whatever. So at university, one of my pals had a Sega Mega Drive. I don't know if you remember those.
Yes.
Yeah, spent hours on that. Another pal had a PC that had the original Doom game on it and stuff like that. So I got into gaming there. And I've had each Xbox through history.
Yeah.
Wow. It's actually, for me, I find it a great distraction from anything.
Likewise.
And it ticks quite a few boxes. I'm very competitive. And there was a bit of a gap when I stopped playing rugby. So it helped me fill that gap. It's also visually stimulating. I've also got one of these
the VR
MetaQuest. MetaQuest things. That I take that away with me.
Okay.
Because quite often TVs, and I know this because I dim it, TVs are knobbled to prevent you from plugging your stuff into it. So
what do you play on MetaQuest? What do you do on it?
What's the game called? Population 1.
Okay. So like strategy
it's a little bit
stuff.
like Call of Duty. It's a little bit like Call of Duty, but you can fly in it.
Okay.
And it involves.
Do you have to flap your arms when you fly?
You don't, but you do have to hold them out.
Okay.
If you want to...
I can visualize you playing it right now.
Like when
it's a very handy one for a hotel room.
Yeah.
You playing online or just like the campaigns?
Online. No, I play online. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I've got a gamer tag and all that stuff. Yeah. I'm in a group. Yeah,
that may be the last one I played a lot of. Modern Warfare 3. It was zombies. The zombies level that we did, that was like our break during studying. The two of us. Yeah. Split zombies. You'd end up at the top of the house. And you're looking for the ray gun, because I would just take out.
It's still the same. The new version is still the same. It's all the same stuff, ray guns. I don't play the zombies. I play the multiplayer in Warzone.
It was like we'd set ourselves a study break, and it was like we'd just keep going until we're obviously would die. But that was the challenge. How long could you be between revision break?
There you go. Games everywhere of all ages.
And like you said, Dan, so for me at the moment it's the Switch that I'm playing. I'm playing the Switch. A game called Astroneer. But it was sort of like one of the goals I set myself this year, where I want to try and complete it. So Astroneer, the difference with COD, there's no violence, right? There's no fear in this game. It's just like an empire builder, but there's nothing that's going to come and get you. But I do have it's just nice to zone out, distract yourself a little bit.
Yeah. It's a bit of a mindful activity. If you think about mindfulness, about, what am I thinking about when I'm playing this game? I'm just playing the game.
Yeah.
Because you have to concentrate. I'm not thinking about it.
Find the stimulation and the gore. Like, what time are you playing? Like, it would keep me up. And with COD, I knew that I was playing too much when I was dreaming that I was playing.
Oh, right. No, I've not got. No, I can switch off from it fairly easily, mate. I've not gone through that. I do get a bit of withdrawal now, but not too bad.
When you were talking about you and Susan working together and applying kind of mindfulness, L&D to hospitality and your experience, does the MetaQuest come into that in terms of using that as a tool to?
Well, you've just given me that idea.
Yeah,
Tristan. This millisecond, a little light bulb's gone in my head. A little light bulb's gone in my head about interactive training as well.
Yeah.
I've got this thing sat in my thing, but you could develop something for it that can actually be quite useful, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
No worries. And especially like maybe, obviously it can't replicate work experience, but maybe teenagers or people that can't maybe actively get into it, they could have an experience. It's for distilleries and like almost like industries that are maybe, obviously I'm not relating to hospitality, but industries that are very high risk or high danger. I always think like it was before MetaQuest is about, but if you're able to create some sort of learning or interactive experience where they can get a flavor or taste of actually doing the job, you think, I don't know, a nuclear power plant and you're picking up hazardous substances, through a digital platform. I think that's always interesting.
Yeah, a pal of mine worked at Hunterston nuclear power station when I was at university, and he would be paid an additional job to do a reactor shift, and you're only allowed to do a reactor shift once every, 6 months or so. He got paid about 500 quid. And learning about things like that, we can't actually go in as well to do it. It'd be quite interesting. But, thinking about it now, I can imagine an interactive. The hardest thing to get staff to do is to do role plays without them laughing.
Yeah.
Or the ones of a more nervous disposition feeling uncomfortable doing it, which I'm not keen on. It doesn't work. If people are under stress, they do not learn. We know that. We know that from language learning, all those things. But people need to be relaxed and stress-free to learn anything. Learn from your mistakes and not learn from big, high-level mistakes. Yeah, but you don't learn from little things that happen to you while you're under pressure. I'm just thinking about, you could have an experience where you're actually serving a virtual customer as the waiter or waitress or bar person. It's not the actions. It's not the you can train anyone on the processes and systems. It's the dialogue. And obviously AI's development will mean that you'll now get, ChatGPT, you can have a conversation with it. So if we can actually get a virtual character that you can communicate with, which you probably can, I know now I'm going to go away and dig it out and get it and see what's out there. So thank you for that.
No worries. Happy to help.
Text in the post, second class. It never gets there.
The second question I referenced is another curveball of information I know just from knowing you. But why don't you tell Jeremy about your experience whiffing? I hope I've got that right. Is it whiffing?
Yeah, we're woofing. We're woofing.
Sorry.
Yeah,
no, actually, tell me it means whiffing.
The strange thing about it is it sounds very close to jogging. The two things are very different.
As long as you don't have stories about that, we're fine.
There's worldwide organic farms, something along those lines. So if you want to be a woofer, and there's a lot of woofers in Scotland, you basically join, you pay a fee for about a year, 30 quid, something like that. And obviously me and Susan, she likes Italian culture, Italian food. We're also learning Italian. So we joined Werewolf Italia. And then on that, you will see a number of choices of places that you can go and work. and they will provide you with bed and board while you work. And the deal is you work 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, and they will put a roof over your head and that. But it's quite hard work. It's farms, vineyards, sometimes it's household looking after kids. You go and help a guy build a shed. There's all sorts of different scales of it. So we went to a natural vineyard in northern Italy, which surprisingly managed to get there by public transport all the way. Bus to Perth, Perth to London, Eurostar to Paris, Paris to Milan on trains. And then we got picked up in a place called Pianello, just down there from the vineyard. Beautiful place, really kind of rough around the edges. This is winemaking. This is not a big French chateau with, driving around in golf carts, things like that. There might be a tractor. There's a very old van. You get up at 6 a.m. There's the family, the parents and the son, and there's me and Susan and maybe another woofer. And you go out, you pick the grapes, and then you come back and you press them. You put the juice into vats. Because it's a natural vineyard, there's no chemicals, none of that. It's all done with water. And it's a great experience. It's a great experience of how not to do stuff. Because the family who just seem to row at high mothers might be shouting at each other. And I could have helped them sort out their processes and procedures and save them about 6 hours a day, every day for 365 days of the year. But I don't think they were really game on that. You were just there to do exactly what they did. But they were beautiful people. It's a beautiful place, really. And I would recommend it. If you ever want to go somewhere, do a bit of work. We did 2 weeks. I think you can do anything from a week to 4 weeks to 6 weeks. There's potential you can do it. And there's our friends who own a steading up in Little Glenshee, a place called Burmiston. It's a bit of an organic farm stroke venue. They have woofers there. So they have people from UK and abroad coming to do a bit of work and staying with them. It's a great system. There's insurance involved. It's all above board. There is a process where you go, I'd like to go there. So you start to communicate with the owner of that business. You both decide whether it's right for you, and then you just go and do it.
Nice.
So I recommend it to anybody.
Yeah.
Actually, for something a bit different.
Is there any plans for another adventure? The last time I spoke, you guys weren't sure, but has there been developments?
I'm not sure. We're kind of, like I said, we're both in what we call project season, Project Dan. So we're both looking at what we're doing at the moment, deciding, how to move. So I'm not sure. We might have an extended period back in the UK just to put some more shape on that before we do it. We'll definitely do it again.
Yeah.
I'm learning Italian, so which is hard, especially when there's no one really Italian to converse with. So it's quite a difficult language to learn, although it may just be any language is difficult to learn when you
just watch rugby in Italian or something like that.
Oh, exactly that, yeah. So, spend a bit of time over there. I'm sure we'll be back again. Not sure, might do vineyard, might do an organic farm, might do, something like that. So we'll see. It's a great experience. So I could recommend it.
So do you pay to do it, or you're being paid, or sort of like your free board for the work type thing?
Free bed and board, yeah.
Yeah, very
They don't pay for your travel.
Sure.
And there's no money involved, but we were fed 3 meals a day. Had wine virtually with 3 meals a day, which natural wine, if people want to try it, because it really doesn't give you a hangover. There's no chemicals and stuff in it. It's quite difficult to get. But yeah, there's, you're pretty well looked after. You do get free time, so you can explore where you are. Me and Susan bolted it on to spending 4 or 5 weeks in Bologna. Just book an Airbnb and like 6 or 7 weeks out of it. I managed to do Susan did a little bit of work while we're away. You can these days. We asked the Airbnb guy. We stayed in it 2 years in a row and said to him, can you sort the Wi-Fi out? It was about 9 megabytes per second. We went back and it was about 2,000 or something. So, if you work with people, you work with people that you come across, you give them advice and say, look, you're going to get a lot more traction if you do a couple of things, because you can move into the digital nomad world.
That was my next question. Would you consider yourself a digital nomad, Dan?
Not yet. but perhaps moving towards that point, we've touched. So I think there's development there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to work abroad in the hospitality industry, which, as you can imagine,
have you thought about building I don't know, managing, or maybe not managing, but just consulting on Airbnb properties with owners, and then be getting to travel the world, staying in them?
Funny you should say that, Tristan, because I'm working with a property company that wants to get into a kind of an apart hotel thing in a moment. So I do a little bit of bit part consultancy, days here, days there, which is, again, another tip. Take care of your LinkedIn page. People do actually get bona fide business from it, especially if you're a specialist in a particular industry. I get asked to help with it with things quite often now, and it can turn into actual, some paid business, things like that as well. Some quite interesting products. Oh. So look after your LinkedIn pages, guys.
Yeah, no, it's great. I need to, I'm posting regularly, but I need to do a bit of profile updating for sure. Yeah.
No, a bit of consulting in that kind of area. A gentleman setting up a glamping site with pods, geodomes, things like that. I do a little bit of that, mainly because the main thing that people miss is revenue management. So how you price, everyone prices too low because we don't want to charge people too much. And you go, hang on a minute. You can charge. Quite often, if you let me have a look at it, I'll probably tell you need to double it to make it worthwhile, because the amount of labour is quite underestimated. What's involved? Yeah, especially if you've got one property and you're doing the laundry, the cleaning, all that stuff. There's a lot of work involved. If you're renting out a 6-bedroom house and you've got 8 beds in it, they've all been used, and you want to turn it around in a day, you either need a lot of linen, or you're going to be spending hours washing or pressing linen. Simple things like that that people get into and they don't realise. Cleanliness standards are quite different from domestic to commercial as well, and what some people think is clean isn't. Just people have different lives, So stuff like that. But Airbnb is fantastic. I mean, I won't criticise it. I mean, it posed a great deal of competition at hotels, especially in places like Edinburgh. Yeah, hotels are very expensive and probably deserved a little bit of a competition. Glasgow never really took hold because the Glasgow hotels weren't overly expensive.
Well, no, and with booking this week, I'm always quite surprised that Premier Inn in Glasgow centre town is very affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of season, it will be, unless there's something on. There's a lot of hotels in Glasgow now. If you notice, there's a lot of, it's all property companies and owners hiding money. It's not always because there's a hotel needed. It's because it's a good investment. There's quite often tax breaks on refurbishment and converting old buildings. So that's why you've got a lot of people building hotels in the Brimming law. And then you've got ones like the Virgin Hotel in Glasgow. It didn't last very long, actually, before it went bust. Not Virgin, but the owners of the hotel. So then they had to sell it. Unfortunately, they had to close the hotel a few months after it opened. But I'm sure it will reopen again. Some canny hotelier will have a Virgin standard hotel to operate. So just got to get the right price from the administrators. So it's all about competition, isn't it? But Glasgow's got thousands of Premier Inn rooms. It's well served by Premier Inn.
Yeah, no, no.
And great locations. St Enoch, George Square, they're everywhere.
Yeah. And the glamping, do you think there's still a growing market?
Yeah. I think it's not glamping itself, it's experiences. So now if you want to sell a hospitality type business, you want to offer an experience. So if you're not going to do a standard hotel that just offers rooms for people doing other things, then, these glamping sites can offer an experience at one with nature. The most successful glamping sites, every pod will have a hot tub sitting area, outdoor pizza oven, projector you can pull down while you're sat in the hot tub with an Amazon Fire Stick so you can watch your content on the screen while you're sat in your pod with your glass of champagne, that kind of stuff. Or camping, nomadic camping, things like that. People now get married. You can get married anywhere in Scotland. So Comrie Croft, you get married in the woods. You can have your service in the actual forest there, and then go down and have your reception in their kind of they've got a kind of barn type thing. So there's a lot of experiences are the new thing, I would say.
Okay.
Glamping is still, for a lot of people, a new experience. Yeah. But they're quite often for adults, and the weekend market, you need a little bit extra. So it needs a kind of outdoor spa or a wood burning hot tub, not just a tent in the middle of the field. There needs to be some selling point.
Got it. Well, I'm a keen camper myself. Bell tent. Yeah, bell tent, wood burning stove. Kids love it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've done a bit of wild camping. So I've got a small one-man tent.
Nice.
And I camped in the Himalayas. We were in Bhutan.
Oh, wow.
2019. That was, Susan never really camped before, but she really enjoyed it. But you would enjoy it when you've got some guys with horses that's carrying the stuff, setting it up for you.
Bhutan's an interesting one, though, right? Because you're paying quite a hefty tourist tax to go in. Like, they try to include the tour.
But that pays for everything. Your guides, your food. So, you've got this thing about, it's not a tax, it's a fee that you pay. So when you go to Bhutan, it might be $250, $500 per person per day, which, to be fair, it was a lot of money to go there for two and a bit weeks. But that's all in.
Right, okay.
You don't actually spend any money apart from tips for the guys you go with, who are, and they don't, their names are quite complicated. So they call themselves Horseman, Lunch Boy. Lunch Boy, I think, is older than me, Cook. And then you got the guide. And me and Susan we went over there. It wasn't a private tour, but there's no one else booked for that week that we were doing the trek for. So we were on our own with these guys. It's not campsites. You're just in the Himalayas. These guys will dig the toilet hole and, heat water up and stuff like that. But it doesn't cost you. You barely need to put your hand in your pocket once you've paid for your holiday.
Got it.
Yeah, do you see what I mean? So it's not really a tax. It's wrong for them to describe it as that. I had to talk to them about it because it's actually an all-in travel price. When you pay, your money goes to the Bhutanese government. And once you've left, having enjoyed your holiday, the travel agent can then apply for their fee to the Bhutanese government. So it's a very safe transaction as well. Yep. It's a monarchy. So it's actually, it's still a king.
Yep.
And so what he says goes. But it has, it's a Buddhist country, so they don't talk about growth, they talk about happiness. Happiness.
Happiest countries in the world, right? Bhutan's like it. Yeah, no.
No, interestingly, they don't claim to be the happiest country in the world, but they claim that that's their key focus.
Okay.
So they actually say happiness is a key KPI for the Bhutanese. My favourite Bhutan story is everywhere you go, there's stray dogs. But the stray dogs are not malnourished. Their Buddhists will feed them. Mm-hmm. Buddhists shit with dogs. Dogs are quite often seen as past relatives and things like that. So dogs are well looked after. So you'll see a lot of stray dogs, but they're well fed, looked after. So during lockdown, those dogs weren't getting fed. So the king ordered the Bhutanese army, the Royal Bhutanese Army, to go out and feed all the stray dogs.
Wow.
Different world.
Yeah.
Life's very different there. It's a great place to go if you get the opportunity. And also on the way you go through Kathmandu, which is wild. So, a couple of nights in Kathmandu that'll open your eyes a bit as well.
Sure would.
What was your favourite hotel that you've worked in?
Oh.
Brand and location.
Oh.
And why?
So if I think about the job, probably the Z Hotel, because it was a new brand, really clever. If you remember the old Printworks, which is a pub in Glasgow, Printworks, this bar and club on North Frederick Street. So it was that building, which was an old Printworks. They managed to create a 104-bedroom hotel with the concept. There's a lot of them about now, but some of the rooms are only 8 meters squared. Let's say your traditional Premier Inn's 19, 20. And to put that to very small rooms, but beautiful £2,000 mattress, natural mat bed, shower, big glass shower cabinet, a toilet, which is the bathroom basically. Massive TV with all Sky on it. so movies, sport a lot, and you could connect with your phone as well. And they did free cheese and wine. So if you would check after you checked in between 5 and 7, you'd invite you down and you could have, there'd be a cheese buffet. Cheese buffet. It's heaven for a lot of people.
Yes.
And then, white wine, rosy wine, red wine. And if you asked, you get a beer instead and soft drinks and stuff like that. So that was all part of the deal. Compact, affordable luxury, but still at kind of a Premier Inn price. 70 quid, 80 quid.
What?
And it was great introducing a new brand into a new country and a new city is a great experience, especially a smaller group, because you're involved in every step of it. I was involved in with the builders, contractors coming in, a wider reception desk. They put all the internet together so that the VoIP phones worked and the PMS worked. It's a great experience. And it was also the race against time to get it open from the Commonwealth Games. Unfortunately, we didn't achieve that, but opened not long after it. So challenging, fun, learnt a lot about myself. I was able to build my own team. So one thing that's still there. This is 10 years ago. In fact, a lad employed on reception is the area manager now. So, really, really enjoyed it. It was great. But for a short period of time, a short snapshot.
Yeah. Okay. I'm conscious of time. Jeremy, do you have one last
question? Well, yeah, one more for me. Experience of failure and how you recovered or what you learned from it.
That's usually my forte, to focus on failure.
Yeah, given the week I've had, or someone else's.
I don't use that word.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd change it for experience. So, failure. Have I failed? Redundancy is not failure. Jobs have I failed? There might be the things I've failed at, or I've not done a particularly good job, especially in my early years. But it wasn't failure; it's part of the journey. Life's. I'm got a big focus on the journey, not the end goal. I'm not looking forward to the time when I'm 65. I'm going to call it a day and sit in front of the TV watching old reruns of Lions tours. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep going, enjoying the journey of life. And if that involves working, then I'm going to continue working. You see what I mean?
Yep.
Failure. There's things I could have done better in the past, and that, from a business perspective, you have tough moments, don't you? There's nothing coming in. Your costs are still going out, and you're going, crikey, I'm going to pay that bill and stuff like that. And then you deal with it, and you learn something about every time you deal with something like that. So I don't like the word failure. Is not an option, Jeremy.
Nice. I like it.
It's a learning. It's an experience. It's a learning experience. Sometimes it's stressful and a negative experience. But failure, you keep moving. I'm flexible, adaptable. If that doesn't work, I'll dart off and do something else. And I'm not going to get too much into the energy of things, because I kind of believe in that as well, that the attraction of energy, that things you're attracted to now when you work with it need to feel right, things like that. But things will also present themselves, and the more aware you are, the more opportunity you'll be able to take. If you close your mind off to things won't happen.
Mm. I like that about the energy. The energy bit was good. I enjoyed that. Yeah. If the energy doesn't feel right, goodness gracious. Yeah.
Ego. Remember those voices in your head? Your imposter syndrome. I had that all my career. Down in, you're no good, someone's going to turn up, tap you on the shoulder and go, "Get lost, mate. You can't do your job." And of course, it's not true. So all those little voices, those little egos, I've got a number. Susan says she only had one. I've got about 6 or 7. Positive one, negative one, slightly generous one. And, they're kind of the one that gets very, very annoyed. Is like that. And then you've got your inner being, which is the way things feel, your energy. You can feel it feels right.
Yep.
The voice in your head's not interrupting. It just feels right.
Yeah, I like that a lot. We'll follow up, Dan. I'm keen for more of that insight. Tristan, do you want to wrap it up this time?
Yeah, let's wrap things up. Any final thoughts or messages for our listeners, Dan, that you want to impart before we close?
Yeah, I think I'd like to stress the inner work. You know, you've got to, if you want to achieve what you want to achieve, the life that you want to achieve, we're going to talk about the work. You know, you want to build a business that you know, things like that. You need to start with yourself. You know, you need to not fly into something with some mad plan, everything planned out, because half of it won't work. So my experience would be half of it may not very well work. So when you've got half a plan that doesn't work, you go, oh, well, that's that then, isn't it? Whereas actually have an idea of what you might want to do, see how it feels, and then work from there. Don't, you know, business plans, you know, I did some facilitation for GrowBiz, so big on business plans. And Tristan is finance and strategy guy. He's probably big on some planning. And you do need some, but I don't think they should be so detailed. If you get derailed, it becomes a bugbear.
Never stand up to a battle, right? As soon as they're battle tested, they're out the window.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah. I learned something for everything.
Yeah.
Everything's a learning thing.
Culture.
Positive, negative, and neutral. You know, it's all there. So much resources now as well. Everywhere, you know, books, the internet, crikey, ChatGPT. You get that to write your adverts now and stuff like that, can't you? You know, it's kind of crazy.
It's wild.
And we're at the cusp of that. So our generation should be taking advantage of it before it becomes the norm. And they'll have detection systems that detect that it was written by ChatGPT. Probably already have.
The unis already do for the essays.
Yeah.
The unis already do. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dan. It's been very insightful. And it's been great to hear a bit more about your background and your journey, and really appreciate you giving up time to be with us. So thank you very much, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Insert Buzzword.
I shall be listening.